Well, in the early days, High River District was a very prosperous ranching country. And it was the home of the famous Mariu Ranch, which is Canada's largest ranch. Before 1900, up to 1900, there weren't any fences in the country, and it was all open range ranching. And the roundups used to go out in the spring and around about the 1st of June and ran the cattle, and then they went out again in the fall and gathered the beef and trailed them to the shipping points. And it was a pretty simple way of life. The wagons would go into High River once or twice a year for groceries and haul them out. Well, I think there were a lot of poker played in those days. I think half the town site in High River changed hands in a poker game or a blackjack game. It was a trading post there. You see, the old trading company. The ranchers all dealt there. And the trains came in from Calgary and from McLeod. There'd be 2 trains in the morning and 2 at night. And everybody would go over onto the station to see the train come in, see who was getting on and off.
For half a century or more, life in High River went on in much the same way. But in recent years, the increasing prosperity of Alberta has brought about a change in lifestyle. New highways, greater mobility, have made it difficult for small towns like High River to compete with a boom city like Calgary, only 26 miles away to the north. The city provides a greater variety of goods and services and seems to offer a more attractive lifestyle and a greater promise for the future. But the growth of Calgary has been rapid and largely uncontrolled, and the provincial government has become concerned about the problems this has created. For in attracting people, business, and prosperity, it has done so at the expense of small towns like High River.
I think my first real view of it came when I ran into my sister from Vancouver, and she stopped and said, "What's happening to High River?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, everything is starting to look so run down. The buildings need painting. Some of the windows have flies in them, and nobody seems to really care." And I hadn't looked at it quite that way before, because living in a location, you miss all of these things. So when I came home, I made it a point to look around, and by God, what she said was true. So, as I say, shortly after that, this problem came up in council, and I took a different view on it then than I had previously, and myself along with other councillors started prodding toward redeveloping our downtown area. We were concerned about the possibility and the probability, really, of a developer coming in, buying a piece of low-priced land on the edge of town and developing a shopping center there, attracting much of the business away from the downtown core. And the minute that happens, your downtown core continues to downgrade, and very, very rapidly. And once that happens, your tax base goes even further skewed than it was before. So we made a great effort at that time to see that no development of that nature did take place on the outskirts of town. It has happened in other towns in Alberta, and I think that they've lived to regret it in some cases, I know.
In 1970, the council, with the help of a professional town planner, drew up a long-term plan which is to be the basis for future growth and development. A major part of the plan involves the gradual improvement of 3 blocks in the downtown area. Block 1 has already been completely rebuilt. Block 2 will be rebuilt as funds and property become available to the town. And finally, Block 3. But no matter how long it takes, it will all be done within the context of the overall plan.
Like any small community, I think that the idea is generated by a few and then builds up. But there's a spirit of cooperation around this entire community that is pretty unusual.
Okay, geez, you guys got a field day, eh?
This is definitely a volunteer brigade with 18 members.
Hey, you understand the wind broke on? Yeah. Here, right there.
And there's people from all walks of life. The grocery man, accountant, plumbers, hardware man, you name it, eh? Just a volunteer fire brigade.
Figure that's where it is in there, Chuck? Huh? Huh?
There's burnt paper right on the desk here.
Open that window now, you can stick it in there.
I was on town council for 3 years, and I had to make some decision with the other members, and I think that we went in the right direction, and it's proven itself so far in a way. Like in our old area, our taxation there was very, very low, but look at it today, there's no comparison, and that's what we have to look for is heavier taxation in the downtown business area. Because a few years ago, it was, and it still is, the householder was more or less carrying the burden for the taxes in town. But now we're slowly getting back to the business area, which is healthy.
In the particular block that we picked on at that time, out of the land out of the buildings and land that the town purchased and started tearing buildings down and replotting and redeveloping, the taxation picture per year for all of that land and building was $1,800 a year, $1,800 a year. After the first year of actual buildings being on there and the first assessment, it was $18,000 was the taxation that the town was deriving of it. Now, we put in round figures, $100,000 in there originally. Now, all but $23,000 of that will come back up in land sales and in what's called a local improvement tax. A lot of the services and all were put in and taxed against the different properties each year to pay them on. So, you know, that's something that people can really relate, the taxpayers can relate to. $1,800, it starts off, you know, after the first year it's $18,000.
The town has always been a place for local people to socialize, and so an open area was provided in the redeveloped block for community events, such as this concert by the Old Folks Band. Apart from some help in the early planning stages, the town has not received any grants or loans from outside. So far, the project has all been financed by the town itself.
We had expended quite a number of dollars, along with the provincial and the federal governments, in drawing up surveys, drawing up plans for the area. And about the time we thought we were going to get it off the ground, the federal government, as they say, pulled the plug on urban renewal and backed out of it. But though they couldn't see the advantage or the need, or they had their own reasons at any rate why they pulled out of urban renewal, we were still faced with the same situation.
These federal money and provincial money is just a whole bunch of garbage sometimes. like it's too big an area. Like years ago, they had this urban renewal deal, eh? That didn't get off the ground? No way. Because that's how that actually did get started. Was it's supposed to be an urban renewal, but we waited and waited and waited, and talked to some officials, you know, provincially, federally. They won't give you any answer. So we just got sick and tired of it. And why shouldn't we be, really? Can't stand still, can we? And it proved itself, eh? All new buildings there now.
The success of the project so far has attracted some attention. The Alberta government now sees it as a model for a policy of balanced urban growth throughout the province. In 1974, a group of town planning students from the university in Calgary visited the town and questioned members of the council about their plan and methods of operation.
Could you perhaps go into where the initial funding for this land banking came from, considering the limited financial base of the town?
Well, I think most towns have a few dollars that are put away, sort of thing. That's in kind of reserve for emergencies. A lot of times emergencies don't arise unless you make them arise. But basically went to the bank and borrowed it. And we borrowed it on a 3-year basis. In order to borrow through on anything over and above that basis, you have to go through a long procedure of going through the government agencies and getting your financing and getting a long-term debenture, advertising in the paper, and this type of thing. Where the other route, you have a certain ceiling that you're allowed, and we were able to meet that ceiling. And we did get a little ahead of inflated land prices that we have today. That was 1970. And so we were a little ahead, and actually we purchased the properties fairly inexpensively. Possibly right now we would have a little more difficulty in coming up with that kind of money too.
Did you actually purchase most of the property, or was it controlled by zoning?
We purchased.
You purchased?
We purchased.
This is why you were able to maintain control, you said?
That's right, exactly. Now, what we actually did, we didn't have enough money just to go in and blanket purchase the whole thing, and I think that was another key of why it was successful. Because I think if it comes out in the papers that, you know, the town has bought up this whole block and is just going to mow it all down and start new buildings and whatnot, I think maybe your negative reaction would come out a lot more. But we didn't do it in that manner. We took it piece by piece. And really what we wanted, there were certain areas within the plan that we had adopted, certain properties that were essential to make it work. In other words, if we had those properties, then the other properties around it couldn't do anything that would really throw the plan out of whack. And so, of course, we zeroed in on those properties.
But the thing that really made the plan work was the support of the townsfolk, and in particular the cooperation of local businessmen who were prepared to re-establish their businesses.
How do you do? How are you? I thought I'd do your face.
Yes.
Well, how do I look?
You're looking just real good. Real good. Awfully good to see you.
Jack Pickersgill is one of them. He owns a men's clothing store.
Yes, I guess
How is Tom?
When I came off council, I thought I'd better put my money where my mouth was. So I plunked it in, put up my building. Fraser next door built his. We were the first two, and it's just gone from there. To turn around and sink a considerable sum of money into a new venture when you already had your business paid for and we're coasting it, I think it takes a bit of courage.
Wedding Friday, eh?
Yes.
First daughter?
Yes, first daughter. Yes.
I gambled a lot of money to get into it. I felt that within the time I expect to stay in business, I could pay for it, and I'm sure that I will now. I've had 2 years now. I'm still eating 3 meals a day and making my payments, and I wouldn't go back the other way.
Okay. If you take a rubbery check, I'll take... What the hell is this, 85 bucks, this coat?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, thanks.
We're not maybe attracting new people, but what we are attracting most and what we appreciate most is the fact that many people who have been disillusioned with business in High River because we weren't supplying the commodities in the way they enjoyed receiving them are now coming back. Our own town and district residents.
Are there old buildings that you're deliberately preserving in the heart of the town? And was there any feeling when you talked to people, carried out your surveys on old buildings versus new buildings?
A wee bit, but maybe not as much as I really thought there could be. High River had, 2 or 3 is before my time, so it'd be 2 or 3 floods, quite major floods, 2 or 3 feet deep in the downtown area here. And of course, in the older days, a lot of the footings and whatnot of these old buildings, even if they were wood structures, were of sandstone. And boy, when we started tearing them down, you could really find what had taken place over the years, because probably of that high moisture content that was trapped in a lot of places. The buildings just weren't going to last many more years on their own anyways. I don't know whether you're all that familiar with the Block 1 over there, but the corner where the Royal Bank is, which is the far corner down the street here, it was a big old sandstone building. There was a bit of tears wept, I'm sure, as that building came down, but the Royal Bank had a number of meetings with us, and we were successful in instilling in them that this was an important corner, really, to the town of High River because of that sandstone on that corner and the heritage that it had. And their architect used this and came back with a plan to suggest to us and see if we would okay it. And it actually incorporated the one wall of sandstone, and that is the sandstone that came out of that building. And I think this kind of smoothed the atmosphere. Well, the sandstone wasn't going to be wiped out completely and walls of concrete put up.
The downtown redevelopment is only a part of the long-term plan. High River has planned a 5% growth rate per year, and it's bought and banked areas of vacant land for development. One of these is McLaughlin Meadows, which was once a farm on the outskirts of town. The students from Calgary spent a week here, helping to restore the old farm buildings. They date from the early days of the township, and they're being preserved as a reminder of the past and as part of a recreation center for the people who move into the new development. This is the first of the land-banked areas to be developed. The revenue the town receives from the sale of individual lots will be used to buy and bank more vacant land.
We could have given our new subdivision over there on McLaughlin Meadows to a private developer, but instead the town itself maintained it. Like if we sold out to a private developer, right? Like they can set their own guidelines on the type of housing that they got in there and set the price on these lots. But as it is now, sure, the town's making a few dollars on these lots, but we're not making big money. We're just making enough to pay for the servicing and paving and so on. So like we have a lot more control on it, and it seems to work out quite well so far anyway.
What happens here in the next few years will demonstrate whether the town's land banking system will work and whether the growth rate can be controlled. Until recently, the main industry of High River has been saddle making. The town is famous throughout the country for its high-quality saddles. The demand for them is growing, and the factory has expanded in recent years. But it can never employ enough people or generate enough tax revenue, and the town is now trying to attract new industries.
I think we'd like to look towards light, clean industry, because we do want some place where youth has an opportunity of staying here and remaining here. In the earlier days, few of the children had an opportunity to stay here. There just wasn't the work to do. But we're developing along that line now, and more and more children and youth are becoming evident in High River.
They keep coming back. They look for work here.
To the degree where we're in the midst of considering a rather extensive recreation center here. We'll probably get shot down the first go at it, but we'll come back. We're used to that kind of stuff. That'll be built.
Just take time.
Yeah.
You know, so often communities grow if they grow almost like topsy, particularly a small community like ours. And for our council to sort of sit down and, as they did a number of years ago, and look at the town and the potential for growth and that kind of thing, and sort of map out a future, hire people to help plan and work with the community, means that we have a big part of the control. I mean, there are things perhaps that are slightly beyond our control, the provincial governments, regulations and that kind of thing, federal grants and these kinds of things which may limit or cause growth to accelerate. But by and large, I think the community members, as their representatives, the council, have control of much of the future of this community.
I imagine there are a lot of towns in Alberta and in Canada generally in the same situation that we were. Our country gets old at the same rate throughout, and I'm sure there are a lot of towns running down the same way our town was running down, and they must look at it, as we looked at it at the start, like rather a hopeless thing for local enterprise to get out and do it. But you can tell them that it can be done. But don't wait for somebody to hand it to you. You're going to have to get out and get off your fanny and do it yourself.